Perceptual Shift Show. Whoa, whoa, whoa. All right, welcome to another episode of the Perceptual Shift Show. I'm James Quine, and this is my brother
Robbie, and I'm a perceptual shifter.
I'm a perceptual shifter.
A life lover.
He is a life lover, and I'm
cheers,
a life lover.
bro.
Cheers, bro.
Right on.
Cheers.
Perceptual shift juice.
Perceptual shifting into cinnamon tea
That's right.
for me.
Yeah.
Coffee for you.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a great show for you today. Again, we're going to be talking about the Perceptual Shift book.
That's
How
right.
to love your life and manifest abundance.
That's correct.
But before we get too far into the show, we're going to do what we always do, and that is play you the intro song.
That's right. It's kind of a ritual here at Perceptual Shift.
It's our Perceptual Shift song that we made up.
That's right.
We created, and we're going to grab these guitars real quick.
We got to get your chakras rocking.
And we're going to lay it on you right now.
A double scoop. Welcome to the Shift Show.
Get ready for the mind flow. You're going to see the world in a brand new way. We'll show you how to love life. Eliminate your strife. You'll manifest all that you desire. The Perceptual Shift Show. Whoa, whoa. Yeah. If you haven't heard the show on that is on page 3 of the Perceptual Shift books, the lens through which we see how your perceptions shape reality, you might want to go back and check out that page, but you don't have to, because each page stands on its own.
Right, it's true.
And what we're going to do here is
You can come in mid-flow.
You can come in mid-flow, that's right. And what we're going to do is we're going to just basically read the page and talk about the page and talk about how we transform ourselves to create more abundance and love our lives.
That's right.
As we said in previous podcast episodes, we did not come from a background necessarily of loving life when we were teenagers. And I suspect we did love life for a while as little tiny kids.
Right.
But
Yeah,
there
there
was
a lot of fun times mixed in there.
there was some,
Like
like,
there was some dark too.
yeah, our parents got divorced and there was
Yeah,
some
that was a
arguing
bummer.
and there was some difficulties and we had
A little bit of
step-parents.
latchkey kids stuff
We had some
happening.
funky
Yeah.
experiences with step-parents and,
Right.
that were not healthy for sure.
Yes.
But we had a lot of great experiences.
Yeah. All in
And-
all, it was pretty great.
I think you said recently that you wouldn't take any of it back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I might take a couple things back.
Yeah, let's keep it real.
Yeah,
there's a couple things.
Yeah.
But
Great
not
life
a lot.
together. Yeah.
Because it made me who I am.
Yeah. And we come from, our mom and dad were actors and my mom was a musician and
A creative, bohemian, kind of very cool family.
she wrote a book too. My
Yeah.
mom wrote a book. My stepmom wrote a book, The Bridesmaids. Judith
Incredible.
Coyne,
Yeah, a lot of
Judith Balaban.
creativity.
And
It was nurtured with us.
Yeah.
We were sort of steered in that direction.
Exactly.
To be creative beings.
And as a child, we grew up and saw our dad as a cowboy, and then
Yep.
we saw our dad as a fugitive, and then we saw
Right.
our dad as a doctor.
Yeah.
And so we experienced this sort of creative stuff, and you picked up the creative stuff a lot younger than I did. I mean, I remember being in Judy's garage playing music, and I would be singing just random lyrics to you playing guitar.
Right.
Yeah, and you always wanted to be in a band. You always wanted to be a rocker.
Yeah.
You
That's
were an
true.
artist as a kid. You
Yeah.
you went to Barnsdall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for animation.
Yeah, I was doing film animation. I would start I made like surfing movies with cartoons, and I would airbrush the waves.
And you airbrush T-shirts too.
Yeah, so I was kind of headed in a sort of a psychedelic direction with the animation.
Who were some of the people that were on those T-shirts?
That was probably from Yellow Submarine, the Beatles.
Yeah.
I think that inspired me.
Didn't you
a
have
lot.
like Susie and the Banshee on the
Yeah.
on the T-shirts?
Yeah.
And you did a couple of surfboards.
Yep.
Who was on the surfboards?
I would do leopard spot surfboards.
Oh, right.
I did all these glitter rock surfboards.
Right.
Zebra stripes.
Who else did you
And
have on
I
the
did,
T-shirts?
all of them. Sex Pistols, Bowie, Iggy Pop.
Those are
all
cool
my favorite
shirts.
bands, the Cramps.
Yeah. So Rob was always the creative. He was also very athletic as a kid. He was the woman's man. Yeah, all the girls liked him. He had long
Some
hair.
of the chicks liked you though too,
They
James.
did, but you had the black book.
But you had the blonde hair, and you were styling too.
Robbie had a black book, and he left for a week to camp or something like that. I found his black book, and my younger brother Sean found his black book. We invited everybody to come over to our house when our parents weren't there for a party for him, a surprise party for him that he never came to because he was in camp. But we wanted all the hot girls to come to our house. And that was a really fun night. I'm not going to get into exactly everything that happened, but
I've heard little bits and pieces of that.
yeah. So, so now I'm starting to get into the creative stuff more. You know, for those of you who don't know, I was a publisher for 30-something years, Mary Magazine, different.
I worked for you.
Yep, you did with me,
Right.
please. And then
I learned a lot there too.
yeah, and I became a graphic designer, and I learned all the Adobe products and Illustrator, InDesign, everything like that. And I really love helping people make money. And I
Yeah,
love
you're good at
being
it.
creative, designing ads and content and writing articles and all that stuff. This is my first attempt at writing a book. It's the culmination of 30 years or more of mentoring other men on how to love life and create abundance. And I think it came out fabulous.
I love it. I love that it's very practical and it's simple. It's not a big sort of woo-woo kind of thing. It's like, this works. Let's do what works. Let's stop doing what doesn't work.
Exactly. And by the way, anybody that does have the book or wants to get the book, we do have a Saturday workshop on Zoom.
It's fun.
Yeah, every Saturday at
It's
noon.
for
Hawaii
all
time.
levels too.
Yeah.
You do not have to. If you're a beginner, that's great. If you're an intermediate, that's awesome.
All levels and all ages.
Yes.
All colors.
Anyone that just wants to be happier and enjoy
all
their
political
life. Get
whatevers.
rid of some boring patterns that don't serve me anymore. Flick them off.
Right.
Thank
all
you.
sexual orientations. It's open to everybody.
That's right.
Even kids.
Anyone that
seniors
wants to
like
reinvent
us.
themselves and have a funner life.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun. You
Yeah.
know, that's a very important part. I
So
mean,
let me just tell them what time it is. It's 12 noon Hawaii time, 3 p.m. California time, and 6 p.m. Eastern time on
correcto.
Saturdays.
Yeah.
So I'll post the link in this podcast, but if you want the password, you'll need to message me directly, either in Instagram or TikTok at James M. Quine, or you can just put a comment in YouTube and I'll get you the password
Is
for
the
that.
password Robbie's little black book?
No, the password is not that. And I'm not telling you the password because I got to just make sure that no bots are on there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, no robots. Did you call yourself Robert Chanter? So no robots.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That'll work.
So anyway, that's the Saturday workshop. If you do want to buy the book, the Kindle is just a couple of bucks. I think it's
Yeah.
$2.99 or something like that. The actual book, the soft cover, is $14.99. There's also a hardcover book on Amazon. You can get them there. If you want a signed copy, again, you can DM me.
I have
and and I'll be happy to sign a copy and send it to you. You can just pay me on Venmo or whatever, the cost of the book. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Let's dive on in with reckless abandon.
Okay, we are on page. It's very
We're
difficult to
just
see page 4.
ripping through it. We're on page 4 now.
Yeah, exactly. We're on page 4. All right. And by the way, if you don't have the book, you can just listen. Yeah. This page is called The Science of Perception, How It Works. At its core, perception is a neurological process. When you see, hear, or touch something, your brain receives input from sensory organs and processes this information to form an understanding of your environment. However, this process is not purely objective. While the raw data, light waves, sound vibrations, or tactile sensations, remain consistent, the interpretation of this data varies widely among individuals. So I'm going to read as an example here, but I just want to touch basis on that. So what we're talking about is the input that we get from our environment, the experiences that we quote unquote go through are clouded or tinted by all kinds of different things, where we're at, how we feel,
Definitely.
our situation, what's been going on the last 24 hours or 5 years, or where we were raised, or where we live, or
Right.
what the cultural influences are. There's just a million bits of information that will change the way we perceive something versus somebody else. And we're talking about the same thing.
Right.
I want to give you a quick example of that. For example, I wake up, I'm in a great mood, I'm full of gratitude, I feel so blessed. It's like I'm just abundantly radiating life. And I look out and I notice that it's raining. And I'm like, thank you, universe, for cleansing the planet, for nourishing the trees and the plants, for providing water to us. It's such an incredible gift. I love you, universe. I love my life. Now, somebody else went to bed, had an argument with their husband or wife, woke up to hear the baby's crying and noticed that the dog crapped in the middle of the room.
Right.
They look at the alarm, they realize they're late to work. And then they notice it's raining, but they drive a motorcycle. So they're very, very upset.
Right.
They didn't do any kind of, kissing their fingers
Yeah.
and saying thank you for me being alive and wiggling their fingers and toes. They didn't do their yoga.
Right.
They didn't do their meditation. They didn't do their affirmations. They didn't do their abundance work. They didn't, thank their angels for being alive or
Right.
whatever it is that everybody does in their golden hour or their spiritual work.
Right,
They didn't
right.
look in the mirror and say, I love you. None of that stuff. They just were bombarded with, exterior stimulus, and it took them down.
Right.
And once they see it raining, they're just, it's over for them.
Right, right.
So this is the example that I'm making, that it's the same rain. It could be the same city. It could be right next door to each other. It could be in another room in the house. But we are affected based on different things. For instance, two people might hear the same piece of music.
Right.
One person may feel elation, recalling joyous memories, which I did when I heard that song.
Right. Right.
While
And I
the
think
other,
you cried about 93 tears.
I think I cried a few more tears than that in my life, but yeah. While the other may feel sadness due to a melancholic association. And again, this depends on where they're
That's
at
right.
emotionally at this moment, right? This contrast arises because perception is influenced by past experiences, beliefs, emotions, and even biological factors like age or health. If we're sick and we've been throwing up or we've been having pounding headaches, it's going to affect how we feel.
Sure.
There's no way to separate that.
Yeah.
And so what I'm trying to say is we can't remove all our past experiences.
Right.
But we can unravel them. We can, start peeling the layers of the
That's
onion
right.
back.
And they can become less triggering.
And we can begin to see them as opportunities rather than
That's
struggles.
right.
And we can
Everyone's
see
got
how every single one of them shaped us to have this amazing life that we have today.
Talking about gratitude, aren't we?
That's right. All right, so the next paragraph is neuroscientists have discovered that perception involves not only the sensory areas of the brain, the feeling areas, right? But also higher order cognitive functions.
Right. Higher mind.
Yes. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision making and problem solving, plays a crucial role in shaping how we perceive sensory input and assign meaning to it. This means that perception is not a passive process. It is active and dynamic, constantly influenced by our internal states and external environment. So like we were talking about before, if I'm sick, that's going to affect it.
Right.
If the dog crapped in the middle of the room, that's going to affect it. The baby's crying, that could affect it. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, the book is about loving life.
Right.
And certain things can make it very challenging to love life.
Sure. It's a good idea to take a breath when I'm upset.
Yes. There are inevitably going to be situations that are so incredibly catastrophic
Yes.
that it virtually makes it impossible to love life.
Yeah.
I remember somebody telling me when I was mentoring somebody, and they said, "So what you're telling me is that there's nothing that will prevent you from loving life?" And I said, "Well, I'm not saying that there's nothing that that would happen that would prevent me from feeling badly, but what I'm saying is it won't keep me not loving life." And he
Right.
said, "Well, what if you were abducted, kidnapped,
Right.
chained to a bed, raped for a year?" I said, "It would be virtually impossible for me to love my life. I'm going to admit, I don't think I could do it."
Right.
Now, maybe some guru or somebody could do it, but even with the tools at my disposal, even having decades of experience loving life and being positive and buoyant and turning things around and seeing obstacles as opportunities, there are situations that are just so horrendous.
That would be very challenging.
Be
for sure.
very, very challenging. That being said, that is such an anomaly. And what I hear mostly is people not loving life because of money or because of relationships or because of illness.
Right.
It's usually one of those three situations. It's relationships with others, it's financial issues,
Right.
or it's health issues.
Sure.
And, you know, those can feel very serious.
Yeah, and especially if they're all clumped together.
Yes. And that's what I call piling too. If you
Right.
start piling them all together,
Yeah, sure.
it gets very difficult. But let's address those three things for just a moment in context of this before we ask this question, answer the question. But if you lose your job or you don't have enough money and you're facing being kicked out of your place or your car gets repossessed, and let's just make it even more difficult. You got children to support. You don't know how you're going to get out of this. Do you think in that situation it's possible to love life?
Yes.
I do too. And I think that
It's going to take a little extra effort.
it's going to take some effort. And this is the pen to paper work here we're talking
Thank
about.
you. Yeah.
This is, and by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen this book, this is a workbook.
Yeah.
Meaning,
Don't be afraid to scribble in there.
yeah, in fact, if you don't write in this book, you're not going to get what I'm trying to give you
Yeah.
out of it. You're not going to get what I'm sharing, which is, the ability to love life and to manifest abundance comes from actually doing the writing and doing the work, the introspective work.
Yeah, and dig deep and don't be afraid to be objective.
Yes. I personally have been broke several times in my life. You?
Yep.
Yeah. I've been broke. I've had a car repossessed in front of me and my child. I have lost 2 homes in the SNL crisis.
Right.
I have been broke after a divorce.
Yeah.
I have lost money in investments, significant amount. I lost money in the crypto world,
Right.
significant amounts of money. And every time I bounce back, part of the reason I bounce back is that I truly believe in my inner core that more abundance is coming my way.
That's right.
And that the universe wants to shower me with abundance. And the only thing that's getting in the way of that abundance is me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So when I do my abundance affirmation in the morning and I open myself up to abundance of finance and romance and health and love and service and kindness and silliness and laughter and smiling and all the good stuff, creativity, what I'm attempting to do is I'm attempting to convince myself, for better words,
Right.
or brainwash myself into allowing myself to be open for it to come in.
Sure.
When I doubt my ability to attract abundance, it's like a funnel that puts a plastic Ziploc bag in the way of the liquid going down.
Right. It blocks it.
It blocks it. It can't get through. I'm basically shutting the door.
Yeah.
Now, I want to be clear. I'm not free of doubt.
Right.
A doubt may come to me. I might say, wow, I'm struggling financially it feels like sometimes it feels hopeless, like I'm never going to make any money. But the moment that thought arises in my head, I immediately recognize that my thinking is not aligned with my goals of abundance.
Right.
It's not aligned with what I desire. And because I desire the abundance, I have to change my thoughts to open myself to the abundance.
Sure.
So for me, I don't even look at the doubt as a negative. I look at it as an opportunity to recognize that I need to shift back into gratitude.
Right.
And I have to shift into awareness. Maybe I need to do an abundance affirmation again.
Sure.
Maybe I need to do some writing. Maybe I need to do some reading of some inspirational literature or sharing with somebody that's, following this path with me. But I guess I'm trying to say that I am not perfect. And I don't do this whole thing perfect. Some people come up to me and they say, well, you're happy, joyous, and free, and you love life all the time. And I'm like, no, I don't. I have moments of self-doubt. I have moments of sadness, frustration, anger, even resentment.
Sure.
These things, I'm human. We have the whole, what is it that you say?
The whole spectrum.
The rainbow,
The rainbow.
of feelings, emotions, thoughts. Yeah. And they all have a purpose.
Yeah.
Every one of them. So I guess I'm just saying that it's if you're listening to this podcast and you're thinking, well, he has a nice home, or he's a writer, or he's successful in any way, if you see me that way, or he looks like that, so of course he's happy, or whatever it is, it has nothing to do with that. I struggle just like every other human being on this earth. The only difference is the amount of time I struggle for is very, very limited.
Yeah.
My goal is seconds, not minutes,
Right.
not hours, not days, not weeks, not months, not years, but seconds. I only want to struggle for seconds.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I want to choose a state of being. I like having an attitude of gratitude because it's more fun. I think it's healthier. And yeah, it's like a passing cloud, those little doubt clouds or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, let's talk about a struggle you went through a while ago.
Along.
Talk about the Maui Taco struggle. Tell them about that. What happened?
Yeah, I was having a weird day. I was hungry. I was cranky. I was a tiny bit bitchy. And I walked into Maui Tacos, and they were just shutting down. And they said, sorry. I was like one person behind the last person. And I was very hungry. And I was a little bit miffed, and I'm like, crap, and I said it out loud, pretty loud. And this kind of semi-redneck guy, I think he might have been drunk or something, he started laughing hysterically, and I forget exactly what he said.
You say you're molded or something like that?
Something like that.
Like,
You're roasted or
You're
something.
roasted. Yeah. Hey, you're not going to eat tonight, bro.
And it was...
What happened to you emotionally in that moment when
Well-
he said that? You already were feeling a little upset that you couldn't get your food. When
Yeah.
he did that, what happened? What was your feeling?
I was, being shamed publicly at a Mexican restaurant.
And in front of the cashier, no doubt.
Yeah. But it was all his stuff,
But how did you get there to see it that way?
I kind of felt sorry for him a little bit,
But did you initially feel like, fuck you?
Yeah. But it very quickly went away. It's like he's an alcoholic. He's, kind of sort of a sleepwalker kind of person, I think. And he wanted to kind of embarrass me, but I didn't hold on to it. It's exactly what you're talking about.
So you felt the
I
shame.
felt like he was kind of a wounded person.
But you felt the shame, the victimization, and the
Yeah.
resentment for seconds, not minutes.
Yeah, for seconds.
Seconds. And then automatically you recognize it and you switch to compassion.
Yeah, I actually closed my eyes for a second and meditated for like a millisecond.
And went into understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
And then recognizing it was not in your hula hoop. Mm-hmm. And that all belonged to him.
All of it.
And then you left the restaurant. And when you left the restaurant, did you think to yourself you were still angry at him?
No.
No. And then what did you do? You got some food?
Yeah.
Over at like Foodland?
Went to the market or
you went
something.
to- yeah.
It wasn't as good as the what I was
Right.
really in the mood for a burrito, but
So I
had
did something.
a little burrito withdrawal.
Yeah, and I did something recently too that was similar to that. I was in the office over there, and this is before I fixed the problem, but there's a Murphy bed in there. The Murphy bed was down, and the Murphy bed has these metal legs on it that hold it when you pull it down off the wall, they hold it onto the ground. And those legs are danger zones for toes.
I see where this is
And
going.
as I
yeah.
came around
So you
the
were
bed
barefoot.
from my chair,
Right.
my pinky toe hit that piece of metal that was holding that Murphy bed up. And I went from happy, joyous, free to excruciating
Yeah.
pain. Because we all know what it feels like to stub that toe on the edge of the bed.
I'm feeling an F-bomb exploded.
And I did. I F-bombed it straight up. I went down on the ground. I fell on the ground. I was like, oh, and I swore.
Rated
And then I remember
R.
saying, like, within seconds, like, oh my God, at least I have a toe to stub.
There you go.
that came out of my
That
mouth.
is a perceptual shift
And then I
on
said,
a toe level.
And a bed to sleep in.
Thank you.
And a house to have that bed in.
Keep going. Yeah, stack
And as
them.
that gratitude
Yeah,
built,
Yes.
I got to a point where I said, and the pain's already subsided.
Wow. There you go.
And that's the shift we're talking
That
about.
is the shift.
That's the perceptual shift we're talking
applied
about.
to a baby toe.
Yeah. So these are just little tools and tricks that we've
Yeah.
learned to develop. And they didn't come overnight.
No,
They took years and years and years of practice.
that's right.
And we got better and better at it. And hopefully we'll get even better at it. And those seconds will get even shorter.
Exactly. It's just let it pass.
Yeah. Okay. So the question part of this page. Have you ever had a conversation where both you and the other person believed you were right and it led to hurt feelings? Both people thought they were right in the conversation.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. So the idea is if you ever had a disagreement with somebody, both people thought they were right.
Yeah.
And, both of them felt a little butthurt.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I wrote yes to that too.
I think
And-
that's pretty universal.
Yeah, if you're
Almost
listening to
everybody.
this, it probably has happened to most people, like you
I
said.
think many, many times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it says, if so, write down the situation and reflect on how seeing it from their perspective could have created a better interaction. And I have an answer here that I've written before, but I'm just going to play it by the cuff. We'll just answer it before.
Sure.
A situation where I thought I was right and someone else thought they were right happened between, and it's happened multiple times, where I believed that something I was doing with my grandson was healthy and appropriate,
Right.
whether it was teaching him how to cut an avocado with a knife or using a scissors to trim the plants outside. My grandson, by the way, at this time is 2 years old. And one of his parents felt differently.
Right.
And ultimately, as you can imagine, I'm not his parent, I'm his grandparent. So they're going to win,
Sure. The game is rigged.
which is upsetting to me because I felt that it's important to teach him how to use a knife
Yeah.
and how to use a scissors, but it's not mandatory that he learn right this second.
Right.
But I felt butthurt, and
Yeah.
they felt a bit upset that I would do it without talking to them in the beginning.
Did they shame you for that a little bit?
They made it clear that that's not okay, and they
Right.
would appreciate me not doing that kind of stuff without checking with them first.
Right. That sounds a little bit shamey in there.
Well, I would say that it felt shamey, but they were trying to express themselves in a kind way, but making it clear that it wasn't okay.
It's a little scoldy, though.
How would you have said it?
Well, it could have been approached a little bit more lovingly.
Well, let me hear it.
I appreciate that you're trying to teach my grandson how to use the knife for the avocado.
And at
But-
some point, I do want him to learn.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing to learn.
However, at this point, I still think he's a little bit young. and I
great.
love the time that you spend with him and all
That's
the teachings.
exactly
you
what
do.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
it
Yeah.
wasn't like that.
Yeah,
but,
I can tell.
But there have been a lot of conversations with his parents
Right.
that were like that.
Yeah.
That particular one I'm thinking of maybe wasn't like that. And let's go back to this page, and that is, or did I perceive it differently than it really was?
Right.
Because I was sensitive in that moment.
Sure.
Or I hadn't done my affirmations in the
Yeah.
morning, or I didn't get enough sleep. Or,
Tiny bit overly sensitive.
Because as we
maybe.
said,
yeah.
you know, our circumstances and situation, how we're doing each day, along with our past experiences, influences the way we perceive it. So sometimes, you know, and this has happened with my ex-wife, sometimes she would say, well, the only thing I said was blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, that's not exactly what you said. What you said was blah, 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 blah.
Right.
She goes, I did not say that. And I'm like, well, that's what I heard. And she goes, well, I didn't say it. There's no microphone to pick it up.
Yeah.
So the perception is different for both of us.
Sure.
But this wrong, right thing is pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. So that's a great example of a situation that even if they don't deliver it in the greatest way and it feels a little shameful, all I have to do is step into their shoes and say that might have been a little bit fearful to them.
Right.
And so maybe they came from a place of fear
That's awesome.
rather than intentionally trying to shame me.
Yeah.
And that's where I can have compassion for the
Sure.
situation and not need to blame them and even get in my mind like, they're shaming me. More like, well, I feel a little shame, but I understand that this is scary because
Yeah.
I took them across the street and this is a very busy street.
Yeah.
And now they have a rule, don't take them across the street
Right.
without telling us.
Right.
So, you know, having had children myself,
Sure.
particularly your first child,
Yes. There you go.
you can get scared a lot easier.
Yeah.
And you're protective,
Yeah.
which is understandable.
It's kind of instinctive.
All right, so let's hear yours. You're talking with somebody, you're having a conversation, you have one opinion about it,
Right.
someone else has another opinion about it,
Yeah.
and you both think you're right. When was the
Well,
last
this is a little bit of a confession, but I had a girlfriend who her stepdad was, I think he was dying basically, and she was very upset, and
as most people would be?
yeah, of course, but I can't read the future, and he died very quickly, which was a bummer.
But also maybe a blessing.
Possibly, you mean for him?
If he didn't
If he
have
was
to
suffering?
suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. So in retrospect, I'm a little disappointed in myself that I wasn't more sensitive and supportive.
Right.
And I should have said, you know, babe, let's go to the airport and get on a fucking plane.
It's okay. You can swear in this
Okay.
podcast.
And go see him. And you know I hate planes.
Well, yeah. I think in other podcasts you were talking about going to Berlin and London. I was
I'll
thinking
do it for my
you might want to
my
get
heart's
over
desire,
that
yeah.
issue, and that could be something that you could
No,
offer to the universe.
Yeah.
Abundance in being comfortable. On planes,
Definitely. No, I've got some things I have to work on for sure.
as we all do.
Yeah. And I'm willing to do it. Yeah.
So your ex-girlfriend's stepfather was dying. You felt like you could have been more sensitive.
Yeah.
She was upset that
Yeah.
you weren't more sensitive.
Well, I can't speak for her, but she didn't say it, but I could see it in her face.
Right.
She was on the verge of tears.
So
She wanted me to step up, I think, and to say, you know, and to be a partner.
Right.
And
So what was she asking you?
she didn't really ask. She's just like, what should I do?
Oh, so she was considering going.
Yes.
And she said, what should I do? And your answer was,
I said, go if you feel, you know. But I didn't say I'll go with you. So I think she felt maybe a little
that's where it was.
not
Like,
supported, abandoned.
you go,
Yeah.
not me.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I'm not proud of.
And you would have wished that you had said,
Yes.
you should go, and I'm happy to go with you if you'd like.
Yes. Just as a partner and for support.
Right.
But I hate planes.
I mean, that's a little different of an issue than having somebody where you're in a conversation and they're like, this is the way it is. And you're saying, no, this is the way it is. It's a little bit of a different
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah.
Because you're also aware, that you did something wrong, but she wasn't necessarily saying that she had a different take on it.
Right.
Can you think of something that maybe might be more directly correlated to the question, in the sense that, you talked to somebody you were mentoring in your life, and you said, I think that you should do this, and they said, well, I don't think you should, and you have sort of a falling out or a disagreement over that.
Definitely.
Okay,
So
give me an
something
idea.
that's a little more black and white, kind of.
Yeah, a little more like a real disagreement.
Okay. I was.
Let me just say that again. Can you think of a situation where you had a real disagreement with somebody and you both thought you were right?
Yes, definitely.
Let's hear it.
And it's kind of a little bit sad for me. I'm glad you brought it up. I was mentoring someone who I was helping to get off drugs, and they went to drug court, which is not something that I feel is very powerful in terms of healing properties.
Although it's planting a seed in a way.
Yeah, but it's a baby step. Yeah.
It's a baby step, yeah.
But his girlfriend told me that he was still smoking weed,
Okay.
and he said, Robbie.
Which, by the way, we have nothing against weed. We
No,
don't
no.
have any opinion on that.
Yeah, no, I think
it's
that's
not for us, because we're ex-drug addicts and alcoholics. But
Right.
for regular people, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And people that can handle it, it's great. But for really bad drug addicts, it can.
Slippery slope.
Yeah, it's slippery. Yeah. So he was just kind of starting his slip, I guess, and he said, Robbie, are you going to, he was all manic. He's like, Robbie, you're coming to my graduation at drug court, right? And I said, no. And
Which is a complete word.
yeah.
But
And I didn't want to rain on his parade, but it's like, I don't think it's that powerful, in terms of long-term sobriety. And he overdosed on heroin.
But again, I'm going to interrupt you and say, what's the disagreement? You're giving me examples, but you're not necessarily disagreeing.
That I disagree about drug court being a good healing modality.
But he didn't
for
really have an
sobriety.
opinion about drug court. He was just
He
sentenced to it.
loved his drug court.
Oh, he did.
He thought it was very cool, and that he was going to be cured, and he's buying his own hype. And then he died, and he died very quickly. He died like a month later. He got in a fight with his girlfriend. He shot up some heroin.
But you don't correlate that directly to the fact that you didn't go to his drug court graduation, do you?
No, I don't blame myself at all, but I feel like maybe I'm a little bit hardwired about sobriety. Maybe I'm, I might have.
Maybe be a little more open-minded.
Well, but
Tolerant.
Open-minded killed him in a way, because he thought it's okay to sort of be sober and smoke some weed, and
So you knew that he was smoking pot before he invited you to the drug court?
No, I just heard that he was thinking about smoking pot.
Before he invited you to the drug court? Or after?
It might have been like right at the same time. So she was concerned too. She's like, he's not taking this seriously. He's already planning on smoking weed.
Right.
And
So again, the external factors that were affecting your perception of this situation with this person were things that you heard through the grapevine, and you didn't feel that he was taking it seriously enough. But had you felt that he was very serious about his, getting off of drugs and alcohol, and he was really excited, and he said, hey man, I know you're not a big fan of drug court, but it would mean a lot to me to have you come, and you saw him doing all the work, do you think you would have approached it differently?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So it's an understandable situation. And I've been in situations like that before, but the idea is that the common situation that most people go through, most of our listeners and me, is you're in a relationship. You say, hey, we should get a toaster oven. Well, we already have a toaster. Well, I want to get a toaster oven. Well, I don't. Well, I think it would be great. I think it would clog up the counter. You see how we have two different things and both people think they're right?
Yeah.
This is something I hear very often. how do you solve that problem? How do you navigate that problem? This person is right that for them that they don't want a toaster.
Right.
If they have a toaster oven.
Yeah.
They might even say, it's one or the other. If you get a toaster, I want to get rid of the toaster oven.
I would vote for the air fryer.
Okay. Well, yeah, there's a third option. And you could probably put that, hey, how about an air fryer? We get rid of both of those. But the other one wants what they want. I guess what I'm trying to say here is there is no right or wrong.
Yes, that is exactly, it's a relative term.
For one person, the toaster is a great idea.
Yeah.
And keeping the toaster oven also. And maybe even getting an air fryer.
I love, let's agree to disagree. I love that. I think it's like we don't have to have a war over the toaster oven.
But what I hear frequently is, but then what happens? Do I have to deal with another appliance on the counter? Or if I'm hearing from the person that wants the toaster, they might say, but what happens? Now he's telling me or she's telling me I can't get the toaster. So it sounds like such a mundane issue, but
Toaster drama.
But yes, but these issues can be about spending money that needs to be saved for rent.
Right.
They can be about raising your kid Catholic or Jewish. They can be about moving from California to Texas. They could be about just about anything. Staying married, getting divorced,
Right.
getting married or not getting married, having your mother-in-law live with you or not live with you. They can be very big issues. And what I usually tell people is that when you're dealing with what feels like an unresolvable issue, then for me, I believe that we need some tools above and beyond the tools that we're using right now. And that's where a mentor can come in real handy, a third person that can see it objectively and say, hey, how about an air fryer?
Right.
Or how about we get a toaster, but we put it in the closet and you only bring it out when you need it.
Right.
Come up with some different ideas.
Yeah, meeting in the middle.
Meeting in the
sometimes.
middle.
Yeah.
And this takes a lot more
And
work.
choosing my battles.
And
mean,
also getting into the
Ending
shoes
a
of,
relationship over a toaster is pretty ridiculous.
yeah, and getting into the shoes of the other person.
Right.
Like, hey, I understand that, they never got to have a toaster growing up as a child or a toaster oven. They want all of those experiences. I grew up with so many appliances, there was no counter space. So I'm more sensitive to the counter space.
Right.
And they're most sensitive to not having a toaster.
Exactly.
When people can get on the same team
Sure.
and you can walk over that dividing line
Yeah.
and come and see things from their perspective,
Right.
then you can be a team together and have team building and problem solving as a couple.
I think it's good not to be too rigid. I'm not saying to be a doormat on the toaster thing, but sometimes flexibility feels really good.
Yeah. I agree with you. Flexibility is a key component to being happy, joyous, and free, to loving your life. That's right.
Deserves a dong.
So, and by the way, one of my favorite, this thing that I got, one of my favorite things to do, if you get one of these, I'm not trying to sell anybody on anything.
It's the Zen garden.
It's just so magical,
I
right?
love it.
I love it. In any case, so that basically covers this second page. The next episode is going to be great because we're going to be talking about filters of the mind.
Love it.
Woo!
That needs a little thing.
Filters of the mind. So be sure to tune in next week if you love this kind of a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, follow, subscribe so you get notifications.
And you can bring
that's
your
coming out.
filters of the mind if you
You
wish.
can bring your filters of your mind. You can bring all the different
We'll rinse
filters.
them off. So
yeah, we'll clean them. We've
yeah,
got
it will help with your perceptual shift. Looking through the new cleaned.
we'll spray them down.
Right.
We even got some
Filters.
Clorox. We can bleach them if we have to.
We have those little squeegee things for your filters of your mind.
Yeah. James M. Quine on Instagram and TikTok if you want to check out life hacks and other things. If you want to buy the book, Amazon.com, $2.99 for the Kindle, $14.99 for the soft cover. There's also a hardback book. If you want a signed copy, DM me or comment at the bottom of this podcast, and I will get you a signed copy. You can just Venmo me directly. And the last announcement is Saturday workshop, Zoom with the Perceptual Shift book. We read a page or a couple of pages, we answer together, and then we share it together. So if you want to do that, that is at 12 noon Hawaii time, 3 p.m. California time, 6 p.m. Eastern time on Zoom. And I'll be putting the link in this podcast, and you can DM me for the password.
And also, if you want to see reruns of James on Love Hotel,
Yes,
macking on the babes.
Yes, you can go to Bravo to see me on Love Hotel, at the Love Hotel, the Love Hotel, loving at the Love Hotel. Yeah, and Luann. You can see Luann too.
That's right.
That does it for this show. We're grateful that you tuned in, and we hope you enjoyed yourself. We hope we see you at next week's show. And until then, have a great week, and remember that we love our life. Oh, wait a second.
I know.
We have an outro song.
You were having like some kind of a brain fart.
It was a brain fart. Don't be bringing up farts again.
Okay.
Okay. We are going to give you the outro song.
We leave you rocking here at Perceptual Shift Studios.
And if you can't take us singing and playing music, then you can sign off now. But we do have the song coming to you. So hold on one second, because here we go. Now you've heard the Shift Show. I hope you got your mind blown. We'll be back next week with more to say. And if you are a seeker, buy the book, dig deeper. Take what you like and now go out and play. The Perceptual Shift Show. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Nice.
The Perceptual Shift Show. Whoa, whoa.